The champagne bubbles caught the light like tiny diamonds as I watched my daughter Emma glide across the dance floor in her ivory wedding gown. 28 years had passed since I first held her in my arms, and now she was married to Marcus, the man who made her laugh until tears streamed down her face. The reception hall buzzed with celebration, but I felt oddly distant from it all, like watching a beautiful movie through frosted glass. All single ladies, gather around. The DJ's voice boomed through the speakers. I smiled and took another sip of champagne. At 52, I had long accepted my place as the mother of the bride, not as someone who might catch the bouquet. My marriage to Emma's father had ended 15 years ago, and since then, I'd built a comfortable life alone. I had my bookstore, my garden, my yoga classes on Thursday mornings. Romance felt like something from another lifetime. Mom! Emma's voice cut through my thoughts. She was looking directly at me, her hazel eyes twinkling with mischief. Get out here. I shook my head, laughing. Honey, I'm fine right here. Mother, if you don't get out here right now, I'm coming over there to drag you. She planted her hands on her hips, her veil cascading down her back. The gesture was so familiar it made my heart ache. She'd done the same thing as a 5-year-old when I wouldn't let her wear her princess costume to the grocery store. Sighing in mock defeat, I set down my glass and joined the small cluster of young women on the dance floor. Emma's college roommate, her 3 cousins, and a handful of Marcus's younger relatives giggled and jostled for position. I stood at the back, content to let them have their fun. Emma turned her back to us, the bouquet of white roses and lavender held high above her head. Ready, she called out. Ready, the women chorused. But instead of tossing it backward in the traditional way, Emma spun around. Her eyes locked onto mine, and with deliberate precision, she threw the bouquet directly at me. Not a casual toss, but a purposeful throw, like a quarterback targeting their receiver. I caught it instinctively, my hands closing around the silk-wrapped stems. Laughter and applause erupted around me, but I barely heard it. Tucked among the roses was a small envelope with my name written in Emma's distinctive handwriting. My fingers trembled as I pulled it free. Emma was watching me intently, her expression suddenly serious despite the smile on her lips. The noise of the reception faded to background static as I opened the envelope and unfolded the note inside. The words were written in blue ink, slightly smudged in one corner as if Emma had been crying when she wrote them. Mom, for 15 years, I've watched you put everyone else first. You worked 2 jobs to send me to college. You supported every dream I ever had. You showed me what strength looks like. But I've also watched you shrink yourself, convinced you don't deserve the same happiness you've given me. There's someone here tonight who's been wanting to talk to you for months. He's too respectful to approach you directly because he knows you, and he knows you'll find a reason to say no. So I'm doing this for both of you. His name is Daniel. He owns the coffee shop next to your bookstore. He comes into your shop every Tuesday and Thursday, always buying books he probably doesn't need, just to see you smile. He told Marcus he's been in love with you since the day you recommended that mystery novel to him last spring. Stop hiding, Mom. Stop believing your story ended when Dad left. This is your permission to start a new chapter. I love you. Now go find him. He's wearing a navy blue suit and standing by the garden doors, probably nervous as hell. Love always, Emma. P.S. If you don't at least talk to him, I'm never speaking to you again. I'm joking. Mostly. My vision blurred with tears. I looked up to find Emma, and she was still watching me, her own eyes glistening. She mouthed 2 words. I'm serious. I clutched the bouquet and the note against my chest, my heart hammering. Daniel. The name conjured an immediate image. Kind brown eyes, salt and pepper hair, a quiet smile that made me feel seen in a way I'd forgotten was possible. He came into my bookstore twice a week like clockwork, always asking for recommendations, always lingering to talk about the plots and characters. I'd noticed him, of course I had. But I'd filed those feelings away in the category of things that aren't for me anymore. I was a 52-year-old divorced mother with reading glasses and a collection of comfortable cardigans. Men like Daniel, with his easy warmth and gentle humor, couldn't possibly be interested in someone like me. Except Emma was saying he was. Emma, who wouldn't lie about something like this. Emma, who knew me better than anyone. Well. Emma walked over to me, her wedding gown rustling softly. She took my hands in hers. Are you going to keep hiding behind your walls, or are you going to let yourself be happy? I don't know what to say, I whispered. Then don't say anything. Just go talk to him. She squeezed my hands. Mom, you taught me to be brave. You taught me to go after what I want. Now it's your turn to take your own advice. I glanced toward the garden doors. Through the glass, I could see the silhouette of a man in a navy suit, his hands in his pockets, looking out at the evening sky. Even from this distance, I recognized the set of his shoulders, the way he tilted his head slightly when he was thinking. What if I'm too old for this? The words tumbled out before I could stop them. Emma laughed softly. Too old for what? Happiness? Love? Connection? Mom, there's no expiration date on any of those things. She leaned in closer. Besides, have you seen how he looks at you? That man is smitten. Completely, hopelessly smitten. Emma, I haven't dated in over a decade. I don't even remember how this works. It works the same way it always has. You talk. You listen. You see where it goes. She kissed my cheek. Now stop stalling. Marcus and I have a honeymoon to get to, and I refuse to leave until I see you at least walk over there. She gave me a gentle push toward the garden doors. My legs felt like they were made of water, but I started walking. Each step seemed to take forever and no time at all. Around me, the reception continued, but I was aware only of the bouquet in my hands and the man waiting by the doors. When I was 5 feet away, Daniel turned. His face broke into a smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes, and I felt something in my chest crack open, something I'd kept locked away for so long I'd almost forgotten it existed. Hi, Claire, he said softly. Hi. My voice came out steadier than I expected. I'm told you've been buying a suspicious number of books lately. He had the grace to look embarrassed, a flush creeping up his neck. Guilty as charged. Though in my defense, they're all excellent recommendations. Even the one about competitive cheese-making? He laughed, a warm, genuine sound. Okay, that one was a stretch. But I read the whole thing, and I now know far more about aged cheddar than any person reasonably should. We stood there for a moment, smiling at each other like nervous teenagers. The garden doors were open just enough to let in the evening breeze, carrying with it the scent of roses from the hotel gardens. Emma told me, I said finally, holding up the note, about you. About why you've been coming to the store. Daniel's expression shifted, becoming more serious but no less kind. I hope that's okay. I asked Marcus to tell Emma because I didn't know how else to approach you without seeming forward or making you uncomfortable. Why didn't you just ask me out yourself? He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that was somehow endearing in its nervousness. Because every time I tried to work up the courage, I'd watch you with your customers. You have this way of making everyone feel welcome and valued, but there's also this wall you keep up. Like you're giving so much to everyone else that there's nothing left for yourself. He paused. I didn't want to be another person asking you for something. His perception took my breath away. He'd seen something in me that I'd barely acknowledged to myself. When my marriage ended, I heard myself saying, I decided it was easier to focus on Emma and the bookstore. Romance felt too complicated, too risky. I'd already failed once. You didn't fail. Daniel's voice was firm. Sometimes relationships end. That doesn't mean you failed. It just means the story went in a different direction than you expected. That's a very gracious way of looking at it. I've had practice. I was married once too. 20 years. She passed away 4 years ago. Cancer. Daniel, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. He nodded slowly. It was the hardest thing I've ever been through. For a long time afterward, I thought that was it for me. I'd had my great love, and trying to find it again felt like betraying her memory. He looked directly at me. But then I met you. Last spring, I walked into your bookstore for the first time, looking for something to read on a rainy weekend. You recommended The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry, and you talked about it with such passion, such insight into the characters and their loneliness and their search for connection. I bought the book and read it in 2 days. Then I came back to tell you how much I loved it, and we talked for an hour about stories and resilience. I remember, I whispered. It had been a Tuesday afternoon, slow in the shop. We'd stood among the shelves, discussing the book's themes, and I'd felt more alive than I had in years. I kept coming back because those conversations became the highlight of my week, and gradually, I realized that what I felt wasn't betraying my late wife's memory. She would want me to be happy. She'd probably be mad at me for taking so long to talk to you. He smiled sadly. But I also realized you were putting up barriers. Every time I'd try to steer our conversation somewhere more personal, you'd redirect it back to books or the weather or anything else. I was scared, I admitted. I'm still scared. Of what? The question hung in the air between us. What was I scared of? Rejection? Possibly. Getting hurt? Definitely. But more than that, I was scared of wanting something for myself. For 15 years, I'd been a mother, a business owner, a friend. Those roles felt safe and manageable. Adding woman who might fall in love again to the list felt dangerous and selfish. I'm scared that I'm too old to start over, I said quietly. I'm scared that I've forgotten how to let someone in. I'm scared that if I want this and it doesn't work out, I won't survive the disappointment. Daniel stepped closer, close enough that I could see the gold flecks in his brown eyes. I can't promise you it'll work out. Nobody can promise that. But I can promise you that you're not too old, and you haven't forgotten how to let people in. You do it every day in your bookstore. And if it doesn't work out, you'll survive. You've survived harder things. That's a terrible sales pitch, I said, but I was smiling through my tears. I know. I'm better with coffee than with words. He reached out tentatively, and I took his hand. His palm was warm and slightly rough, the hand of someone who worked with their hands. Claire, would you have dinner with me? Not tonight, obviously, because this is Emma's day. But soon. We could go somewhere quiet where we can talk without worrying about closing time or customers needing help finding the latest bestseller. Yes, I said, the word escaping before my anxieties could wrestle it back. I'd like that. The smile that spread across his face was worth every moment of fear I'd felt walking over here. Really? Really? Though I should warn you, I'm incredibly out of practice. I'll probably be awkward and say the wrong things. Then we'll be awkward together. I haven't done this in decades either. He squeezed my hand gently. We'll figure it out as we go. Behind us, I heard a squeal of delight. I turned to see Emma watching us from across the dance floor, her hands clasped over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Marcus stood beside her, his arm around her waist, grinning broadly. When Emma caught my eye, she gave me 2 enthusiastic thumbs up. I laughed, shaking my head at my daughter's dramatic reaction. She's been planning this, hasn't she? For months, according to Marcus. Apparently, she and Marcus had coffee with me 3 weeks ago to make sure I was serious about you. She interviewed you? Extensively. She wanted to know my intentions, my history, my favorite books, whether I believed in second chances. He smiled. I passed the test, obviously. Obviously. I looked down at the bouquet still in my other hand, the white roses and lavender soft against my skin. This is the strangest way I've ever been set up on a date. It's also the most effective, though. You're here, aren't you? I am. I took a deep breath, feeling something shift inside me. It was like opening curtains that had been closed for years, letting light flood into dusty corners. Daniel, I need you to know something. I'm carrying a lot of baggage. The divorce, the years of putting Emma first, the fear of getting hurt again. It's all there, and I can't just wish it away. I'm not asking you to. I have my own baggage, grief, the fear of moving on, wondering if I can love someone new without feeling like I'm forgetting my wife. We're both works in progress. He lifted my hand and kissed my knuckles, a gesture so old-fashioned and sweet it made my heart ache. But maybe we can be works in progress together. The DJ announced that Emma and Marcus would be leaving shortly, and guests began gathering for the traditional send-off. Daniel and I joined them, standing side by side as my daughter and her new husband prepared to dash through a tunnel of sparklers to their waiting car. Emma paused when she reached me, throwing her arms around my neck. "Thank you for being brave," she whispered in my ear. "You deserve this, Mom. You deserve every bit of happiness coming your way." "Thank you for the push," I whispered back, literally and figuratively. She pulled back, her eyes searching mine. "You're really going to do this? You're going to give him a chance?" "I'm really going to try." That's all I wanted to hear. She kissed my cheek, then turned to Daniel. "Take care of her, or you'll have to answer to me." "Yes, ma'am," Daniel said with mock solemnity. "I'm appropriately terrified." Emma laughed and grabbed Marcus's hand. Together, they ran through the sparkler tunnel, and we all cheered as they climbed into their car decorated with "Just Married" signs and tin cans. As the taillights disappeared down the driveway, I felt Daniel's hand slip into mine again. "So," he said, "about that dinner. Are you free this Friday?" I closed the bookstore at 6. "Perfect. I'll pick you up at 7. Do you like Italian food?" "Love it." "Good. There's a place downtown, small and quiet, with the best carbonara you've ever tasted. The owner is a friend of mine." We stood there in the cooling evening air, watching the other guests drift back inside for more dancing and celebration. I was still holding Emma's bouquet, and the scent of roses surrounded us. "I never thought I'd do this again," I said softly. Stand with someone and make plans, feel nervous and excited at the same time. "Neither did I. But here we are." "Here we are," I echoed. Daniel turned to face me fully, his expression gentle. "Claire, I want you to know something. I'm not expecting you to have all your walls down by Friday. I'm not expecting you to be anything other than who you are, walls and all. We can take this as slowly as you need." "What if I need to take it very slowly?" "Then we'll go at a snail's pace. We can spend 6 months just having coffee and talking about books if that's what you need." He brushed a strand of hair from my face, a gesture so tender it made my throat tight. "I've waited this long to tell you how I feel. I can wait as long as it takes for you to be ready." Something in his words, in the patient certainty of his tone, unlocked the last of my resistance. This man wasn't going to rush me or pressure me or make me feel like I had to be someone I wasn't. He was offering me space and time and the simple gift of his presence. "I don't want to wait 6 months," I heard myself say. "I've wasted enough time being scared." It wasn't wasted time. You were healing, rebuilding, learning who you were outside of your marriage. That's important work. When did you get so wise? He laughed. Grief has a way of teaching you things, like the fact that life is short and uncertain, and when you find someone who makes you feel alive, you don't take it for granted. We walked back inside, where the DJ had slowed the tempo and couples were swaying on the dance floor. Daniel looked at me, a question in his eyes. I haven't danced in years, I said. Neither have I. We'll be terrible together. He led me onto the dance floor, and we found a spot near the edge where we could move awkwardly without bumping into anyone. His hand rested on my waist, mine on his shoulder, and we began to sway to the music. We were terrible, just as predicted, our timing slightly off, our steps uncertain. But none of it mattered. This is nice, I said. It is. Daniel pulled me a fraction closer. For what it's worth, I'm scared too. I'm scared of letting down my late wife's memory, scared of opening my heart and getting hurt again, scared of messing this up because I want it so much. We're quite a pair, aren't we? Two middle-aged people too scared to admit we'd like to be happy. Former scared people, he corrected. As of tonight, we're trying something new. Trying something new, I repeated, liking the sound of it. I can do that. We danced through 2 more songs, gradually getting slightly less terrible, our bodies learning the rhythm of moving together. Other guests smiled at us as they passed, and I caught Marcus's mother giving me an approving nod. The whole thing felt surreal, like I'd stepped into someone else's life, someone braver and more open than I'd been in years. When the song ended, Daniel walked me back to my table. My sister Karen was there, her eyebrows raised in amused surprise. Well, well, she said. I go to the bathroom for 5 minutes, and you get a dance partner? Karen, this is Daniel. Daniel, my sister Karen. They shook hands, and Karen gave him the kind of assessing look only an older sister can deliver. You're the coffee shop owner. Guilty. And you've been coming to Claire's bookstore for months. Also guilty. Good. Claire needs someone who appreciates good coffee and good books. She turned to me. He seems nice. Try not to overthink this into oblivion. I'll try, I said dryly. Leave it to Karen to cut through all my anxieties with brutal efficiency. As the evening wore on, Daniel and I found ourselves in a corner booth, talking about everything and nothing. He told me about opening his coffee shop 5 years ago, about learning to roast beans and perfect his espresso technique. I told him about my bookstore, about the regular customers who felt like family, about the joy of connecting readers with a perfect book. I always wanted to own a bookstore, he admitted. But I went into business management instead. Safer career path, my parents said. It's never too late. You could always open one now. Maybe. Or maybe I could just spend more time in yours. He smiled. I like the idea of supporting your dream rather than competing with it. I like that idea too. We talked about Emma's wedding, about how beautiful she'd looked walking down the aisle, about Marcus and how clearly he adored her. Daniel mentioned that Marcus had been his barista for 2 years before moving on to his current job in marketing. He told me about you long before Emma did, Daniel said. He'd mentioned his girlfriend's mother who owned the bookstore, how strong and independent you were, how you'd raised Emma alone and never complained about it. I complained, I said. Just not where Emma could hear me. That's still pretty heroic. It's just parenting. You do what needs to be done. No, it's more than that. You gave her roots and wings. That's a rare gift. His words settled over me like a warm blanket. For so long, I'd second-guessed my parenting, wondering if I was doing enough, being enough. To hear someone acknowledge the work I'd put in, the sacrifices I'd made, felt like being seen in a way I hadn't experienced in years. By the time the reception wound down, it was nearly midnight. Daniel walked me to my car, still parked in the hotel lot where I'd left it that afternoon. The night was cool and clear, stars visible despite the city lights. So, Friday at 7, he confirmed as we reached my car. Friday at 7, I agreed. He hesitated, then leaned in slowly, giving me time to pull away if I wanted. I didn't. His lips brushed my cheek, soft and brief, but the touch sent warmth radiating through me. "Good night, Claire. Good night, Daniel." I drove home in a daze, Emma's bouquet on the passenger seat beside me, the note tucked safely in my purse. My house felt different when I walked in, though nothing had physically changed. The familiar rooms, the books lining every wall, the photos of Emma at various ages scattered on surfaces, it was all the same. But I felt different. Like I'd been holding my breath for 15 years and had finally remembered how to exhale. I put the bouquet in a vase on my kitchen table and read Emma's note 3 more times before bed. Each reading made me smile and cry in equal measure. My daughter had seen what I'd been too afraid to see, that closing myself off from the possibility of love wasn't protecting me, it was just making me smaller. Sleep was elusive that night. I kept replaying the evening, Daniel's words, the feeling of his hand in mine, the terrifying and exhilarating prospect of opening my heart again. Part of me wanted to call him and cancel Friday, to retreat back into the safety of my routine. But another part, a part that had been dormant for too long, was whispering that maybe, just maybe, this was my chance at something beautiful. The next morning, I called Emma on her honeymoon. She answered on the second ring, her voice bright despite the early hour. "Mom, how are you? Did you talk to Daniel?" "I talked to him. We're having dinner Friday night." Emma's squeal nearly deafened me. "Mom, that's amazing. Tell me everything." I told her about our conversation, about dancing badly together, about his kindness and his patience. Emma listened, occasionally interjecting with excited comments or questions. "I'm so proud of you," she said when I finished. "I know how hard this is for you. You've been planning this for months, according to Daniel. 3 months, to be exact. Marcus and I realized you two were perfect for each other, but you were both too scared to do anything about it." She paused. "Are you mad?" "No. I'm grateful. Terrified, but grateful. You're going to be wonderful, Mom. Just be yourself." That's who he fell for in the first place. After we hung up, I went to the bookstore to catch up on some inventory work. Being Sunday, it was closed, which gave me time to think without the distraction of customers. I moved through the familiar aisles, straightening books, dusting shelves, letting my hands do the work while my mind wandered. This place had been my sanctuary for a decade, the dream I'd pursued when my marriage fell apart. Every book represented a story, a journey, a possibility. And now I was facing my own new chapter, one I hadn't planned for and didn't know how to navigate. My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from a number I didn't recognize, but the message made me smile. "Hi Claire, it's Daniel. Marcus gave me your number. Hope that's okay. Just wanted to say thank you for last night. I haven't felt this hopeful about the future in a very long time. Looking forward to Friday. P.S. I'm reading the new mystery you recommended. Already hooked." I saved his number and typed back, "It's more than okay. I'm looking forward to Friday too. And I knew you'd love that book. It's one of my favorites this year." His response came quickly, "Your recommendations are never wrong. It's one of the reasons I trust you." That simple sentence, "I trust you," hit me harder than I expected. Trust was something that had been broken in my marriage, something I'd built back slowly with Emma and my friends but had never extended to a romantic partner again. The idea that Daniel trusted me, and that I might learn to trust him, felt both fragile and powerful. The week passed in a blur of nervous anticipation. I changed my outfit for Friday night dinner at least 6 times before settling on a simple navy dress that Emma had bought me for Christmas, one I'd never had occasion to wear. I did my makeup twice, trying not to look like I was trying too hard. By the time Daniel knocked on my door at 7, I was a bundle of nerves. But when I opened the door and saw him standing there in a charcoal sweater and jeans, holding a single yellow rose, all the anxiety melted away. His smile was genuine and slightly nervous, which somehow made me feel better. "You look beautiful," he said. "You look pretty good yourself." He handed me the rose. "Yellow for friendship and new beginnings." You looked up the flower meanings, didn't you? I might have done some research, he admitted with a sheepish grin. The restaurant was exactly as he described. Small, intimate, with warm lighting and red checkered tablecloths. The owner, a robust man named Giovanni, greeted Daniel like family and winked at me as he showed us to a corner table. "Danny, you finally bring the beautiful book lady," Giovanni exclaimed. "About time. You told him about me?" I asked Daniel once Giovanni had left us with menus. "I may have mentioned you once or twice, or 100 times." He looked embarrassed and endearing. "Giovanni kept telling me to ask you out. I kept making excuses. I would have said no if you'd asked 3 months ago." "I know. That's what scared me." We ordered wine and pasta, and the conversation flowed as easily as it had at the wedding. We talked about our childhoods, our failed marriages, our hopes for the future. Daniel told me about his wife Laura, how they'd met in college and built a life together, how her death had shattered him but also taught him about the depth of love and loss. "Does it feel strange?" I asked gently, "being here with someone new?" "A little," he admitted. "But also right. Laura and I talked about this, actually, near the end. She made me promise I wouldn't shut myself away afterward. She said life was for living, and she'd haunt me if I became a hermit." "She sounds like she was wonderful." "She was. And I think she'd like you. You both have that same quiet strength, that way of making people feel valued." I told him about my ex-husband Robert, about how the divorce had felt like failure even though I knew intellectually it wasn't. He wanted someone different than who I was. More social, more interested in his corporate world. I wanted someone who valued books and quiet evenings and meaningful conversations. We just grew apart. "Does he see Emma much?" "Not as much as he should. He remarried quickly and started a new family. Emma's relationship with him is cordial but distant." I sighed. I think that's the part that hurt most, watching her navigate that rejection. Daniel reached across the table and took my hand. "You gave her something more valuable than a perfect father. You gave her a role model who showed her how to be strong and kind simultaneously." The food arrived, and Giovanni was right about the carbonara. It was divine, creamy and perfectly seasoned. We ate and talked, pausing occasionally to simply enjoy the moment, the easy silence between us as comfortable as the conversation. "I have a confession," Daniel said as we finished our meal. "I'm completely terrified of messing this up." "That makes two of us." "I haven't felt this way about anyone since Laura. It's exciting and scary in equal measure. What if we just agree to be honest with each other?" I suggested. "If it's moving too fast or too slow, if something feels wrong, we just say it. No games, no trying to be perfect." "I like that idea." He squeezed my hand. "Okay, honesty. This feels really right to me. Sitting here with you, talking, learning about your life. I want more of this." "Me too," I admitted. "I want to know what makes you laugh at 3 in the morning and what you're like when you're grumpy and what your coffee shop looks like at dawn. I want to share my bookstore with you and introduce you to my favorite customers. I want to try this, whatever this is." "This is us taking a chance," Daniel said softly. "This is us being brave enough to believe we deserve happiness." He drove me home, and we sat in his car outside my house for another hour, talking until our voices grew hoarse. When he finally walked me to my door, he kissed me, and it was nothing like the quick peck on the cheek from the wedding. This was slow and sweet and filled with promise, the kind of kiss that made the world fade away. "Can I see you again tomorrow?" he asked when we finally broke apart. "Yes." "And the day after that?" "Yes." "Good." He kissed my forehead. "Sleep well, Claire." I floated into my house, touching my lips, feeling like a teenager again. Emma's bouquet still sat on my kitchen table, the flowers beginning to droop but still beautiful. I picked up her note and read it one more time. Stop hiding, Mom. Stop believing your story ended when Dad left. This is your permission to start a new chapter. My story hadn't ended. It had just taken an unexpected turn, one I never could have planned for. As I got ready for bed, I thought about Daniel's smile, his gentle hands, the way he listened like my words were the most important thing in the world. I thought about Emma at her wedding, tossing me that bouquet with such deliberate aim, refusing to let me hide anymore. Maybe that's what love was in the second half of life. Not the dramatic, all-consuming passion of youth, but something steadier and deeper. A choice to be vulnerable again, to trust again, to believe that the chapters still to come might be the best ones yet. I fell asleep with a smile on my face, Emma's words echoing in my mind. Tomorrow I would see Daniel again. Tomorrow I would take another step into this new, terrifying, wonderful chapter. And somehow that felt exactly right. My daughter had tossed me the bouquet, and in catching it, I'd caught something else. The courage to believe I deserved a second chance at love. At 52, with gray threads in my hair and laugh lines around my eyes, I was finally ready to stop hiding and start living again. The note sat on my nightstand, a reminder that sometimes the people who love us see what we need before we do. Emma had given me permission, but more than that, she'd given me hope. And hope, I was learning, was the first step toward building something beautiful.